Hey everybody, Karaoke here. This week in our dungeon guide, we talked about preparing for dungeons, getting the right gear, runes, sigils, and consumables to be able to start, and I wanted to address some of the questions that we saw in the YouTube comments. So first up, 12 Long says, I spotted the Lux main. I'm a little embarrassed about this, but I actually had no idea what this meant, and I had to go Google it and see it was a League of Legends thing. So here's a little bit of information. I've never played any MOBA ever. Dota, LoL, whatever they are. The only MMOs I've ever played really are Guild Wars 2, unless if we also want to count Guild Wars 1, which I played. I've always been an FPS guy, so games like... Actually, I think I spent most of my life playing Quake 3. Newsflash, I'm old, but Quake 3 was my kind of big one. And then games like Left 4 Dead, little fun shooters and things like that. So I actually am a real bad mono gamer, and there are so many games that I've never played. League of Legends is one, but games like Halo, Mass Effect, things like that. People get really angry at me when they hear that, and I've purchased those, and I mean to go back and play them, but I'm just really busy and haven't had time. So yeah, no idea what this means. I looked it up and saw it's somebody from LOL, but I don't get the joke, sorry. Next up, Will McDonald says, I've never really been able to socialize during gameplay. I'm apparently severely disabled when it comes to that. It amazes me that people can do a boss fight and hold a conversation and chat at the same time. I'd love to be more social and do dungeons and stuff, but I'd be quiet. Am I missing something or just suck at multitasking? This is the main reason I avoid grouping up with other players for stuff like this. No, I don't think you're, what was the thing you used? Disabled? No, I don't think it's that you're disabled or that you're missing something. I think it just takes time. And so for people like myself who have been doing the same dungeons, and there's probably 15 or 20 paths that we do regularly. We've been doing those same 15 or 20 paths dozens or maybe even hundreds of times over the past few years. You start to just get pretty good at it. I have maybe 4,500 hours in game. I haven't checked recently. But something in that range, and so that much time, that much repetition, you just start to get that muscle memory. A lot of players will never really reach that, and they'll always kind of have to focus. But depending on your group, if you're in a decent enough group, realistically, you don't have to put all of your attention into playing the game anyway, because you don't have to be performing at 100%. It's the difference between something like a casual, fun dungeon run and something like raids where we tend to pay a little bit more attention. Now, that's slipping a little bit with my group as well, as we're starting to get more comfortable with raids and, the chat kind of flares back up. But definitely we'll see an ebb and flow of how much we're talking about just random stuff versus how much we're focusing on the game, depending on what it is we're doing and how comfortable we are with it. Anybody in my guild can tell you it's one of those things that gets me really frustrated, is if we're struggling with some content and it seems to be that everybody's just yapping about their day or chatting, I will get on them pretty hard and be like, hey guys, focus. We actually have a whole series of jokes about me telling them to focus, and they make fun of me pretty hard. But yeah, so that's that. Windermere RPG says, another nice video. I look forward to upcoming ones. Thank you very much. The other thing I found potentially confusing was setting expectations to 10-ish minutes per path for an explorable mode dungeon. It's clearly referring to a speedrun with other people who know the paths very well and likely have stealth skipping available and are essentially carrying you through. If this is aimed at a person in an experienced guild that likes to speedrun but hasn't done dungeons themselves yet, that makes perfect sense. However, if this is directed at inexperienced Guild Wars 2 player in general, I would set expectations closer to an hour if you're in a group that's doing an explorable path for the first time. This is a difficult thing for me to address. So first off, I think you're right. I think you're kind of in the right direction on this. 10 to 15 minutes, I think I said 10 to 15 minutes, hopefully, but 10 to 15 minutes per path is really for an experienced group. And that's actually not a speedrunning group. Speedrunning is a term that I think gets a little bit abused in Guild Wars. Actual speedrunners use the craziest tricks that no group would ever use if they're just playing normally. Things like 4 people fighting a boss while a mesmer ports them to the next boss. Little tricks like that to make the runs go a lot faster. Normal runs where you just got 5 people going around beating stuff in, I think 10 to 15 minutes is a pretty reasonable estimate for an experienced group. An inexperienced group is going to take longer for sure. I think it depends on how many inexperienced people there are, though. So when we do training runs, a lot of times we'll run with 3 or 4 people who know it and 1 or 2 people who are new. As an example, just last night, my guild took somebody into the dungeon. It was their very first dungeon ever. They had never done a single dungeon. We took them through AC story mode and all the explorable paths. And I want to say the 3 explorable paths took right around an hour. But it's also important to note that we were 4-manning it. So we had 2 very experienced players, one who had done the paths before but was still relatively new, and then 1 absolutely completely brand new person, and we knocked them out in about an hour for all 3 paths. And that was with explaining stuff as we go. So I was explaining all the fights and you know, giving direction. So one of the things I'm going to be talking about a little bit in next week's videos, it's very important to do paths with experienced people. I know some people like the whole, I'm going in here and I know nothing and I can figure it out thing. But you can do that. It's just going to dramatically slow down the process of learning those paths. And I do think for most players, unless if you just have tons of time to kill, you're probably better off going in with people who can explain it and who are willing to give you a little bit of help with those paths, rather than, you know, try to figure it all out on your own. And like you said, maybe take an hour or so in the process of doing it. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think that you're definitely right, but there are ways to avoid that hour-long path thing if you want, normally by finding an experienced group or a guild willing to teach you. And then last of all, the small font Formeron? Sorry, I'm bad with names. Hi Karaoke, your game looks really good. Can you share your After Effects settings? Yeah, so I think you mean my reshade settings. So I use reshade. I will put a link down in the description to my reshade settings, just like a paste bin of what I use. I tend to try to use a light touch. A lot of people really over-exaggerate their settings, and it gets like, it's too much. I like something a little bit more subtle. There are things I don't like about this that I just haven't had time to fix. Primarily, I think it blows out some of the brighter lights a little bit too much, and I find that my nights are a little bit too dark, and dark spots in the game are too dark. But that's more of a room lighting issue, because I have a window very near my monitor, and so I get really bad glare. But yeah, you can definitely give it a shot, and maybe you'll actually like it better than I do because of my my room problems. So that's it for this week, everybody. Thank you for the questions. Feel free to keep leaving them, and I'll answer in the comments in the old videos. And we should have 5 more videos coming up this next week. If you ask questions there, maybe you'll be featured on next week's Q&A. Thanks again, everybody, and have a good one.